Can everyone hear me okay? Yes. They can? All right, excellent, excellent. Well, thank you all very much for coming this evening to this little talk. My name's David. I'm the brand ambassador for Makar Glasgow Gin. And that's really all that I'm here to talk to you about. Is everyone quite familiar with Makar Glasgow Gin? It's quite a few no's. Did people have to sign up to come to these talks? I thought you'd be at least a little bit familiar with what you were coming to see, but no. You are? Okay, so some very familiar, some less so. Okay, good stuff. Well, we'll kind of cover all elements of the history of Makar Glasgow Gin then. So this is the product here. Of course, Makar Glasgow Gin. This is the first gin ever to be distilled here in Glasgow. Legally, anyway. And we started making the product in September of 2014. So next week actually is a two-year anniversary from the first point that we started making it. First point that we made actually, I think it was September 18th, 2014, which was the day of the independence referendum. So I suspect, I could be wrong, but knowing the political influences of my directors, I suspect we were very nearly called Independence Gin. But yeah, Destiny had other ideas for it. So instead, they perhaps hastily came up with the name of Makar. Does anyone know what Makar means? No one, really? There's bonus points or something. Patron saint? No, it might be somewhere down the line, but that's not what this Makar refers to. Anyone at all? Poet, storyteller, yes. All of a sudden, everyone knew. Very, very well done. So you get a bonus point. If I had shot glass, I'd give you a bonus shot, but we don't. Sorry. Okay. So yes, it's an old Scots word. It means a poet or a bard. So Robert Burns would have been the most famous of the Makars. Indeed, and it's an official position, the Scottish Makar, in the same way that the English, they have their poet laureate is the poet to the Queen. Here in Scotland, not too many people know it, but we have the official Scottish Makar, and that's the Makar to the Parliament. So it recently changed hands. I can't remember who became the new Scottish Makar. Oh, more bonus points. That person's great. Yeah, absolutely. What was the name? Sorry. Jackie Kay. Absolutely, Jackie Kay. So we have. Sorry? Is that right? So yeah, Jackie Kay. So we haven't as yet contacted Jackie Kay to get her approval of the gin, but her predecessor was a lady called Liz Lochhead, who's quite a well-known Scottish poet and playwright and so on. So one of the first things we did when we started out as a company is we got Liz Lochhead out to the distillery. We invited her out there. She told us she liked gin very much, so we thought she's going to enjoy it here. So we took her out. She saw our gin stills. We've got lovely sort of copper pot stills, as most people do. She liked them very much. Said, "I like your stills. I'm going to write you a poem about your stills." And of course, we thought that's fantastic news. We're going to get a poem by the official Scottish Makar. We're going to write it we're going to put the poem on the back of the bottle. We're going to sell hundreds of thousands of bottles of this stuff. So happy were we that we filled the boot of Liz Lochhead's car up with gin, and we sent her on her way. And 2 years later, we are still waiting to hear back from Liz Lochhead. So we do hope that. That's right. That might well be the problem. Yes. So yeah. Either way, hopefully, if she does sober up, that we'll eventually get our poem out of her. So yeah. Let me see. So I've got this is. Goodness me, this is all much more high-tech than I'm used to. So I'm going to click on to the next slide. Okay, botanicals. So yes, so the literal translation of a Makar is a maker, essentially. In English it would be a maker. In the poetic sense, I suppose they take ordinary words and make them into beautiful poetry. Whereas in the gin sense, I suppose the idea is that we take ordinary ingredients and hopefully make them into quite a tasty gin. So I'm conscious of this microphone. I'm not really used to speaking into a microphone. I'm going to try and stretch so that I can pass my botanicals out among you, okay? So let's see. So the first botanical that we're going to send around, of course, is the Juniper. So for gin to be called a gin, the only real legal definition for how to make a gin is that the predominant botanical has to be Juniper. So that's to the letter of the law. That is a legal requirement. Having said that, there is no such thing as gin police. and therefore there may well be one or two gins on the market for whom Juniper is not the predominant botanical. We, however, kind of take it to the opposite end of the spectrum, and we take the Juniper being predominant very much to the nth degree. So we've got over 90% of our recipe is Juniper. You guys have got little taster cups there. Perhaps now is a good time to have a try off Makar gin. Have a try of it neat, see what you think. Of course, I've got a list of all of our botanicals up behind me. But in terms of nosing it and tasting it, does anyone get anything specific from it? Is there anything that it reminds them of? Licorice, absolutely, yeah. Licorice comes through, I think. Coriander, someone said. Does anyone think of anything that isn't behind me? Anything else that comes out? Someone said lychee once. Lychee was quite a good answer. There is a sort of rose petal lychee, slightly floral. Certainly, yeah, absolutely. On the nose, there's something like that going on, definitely. But yeah, like I say, main ingredient for us is the juniper, which we've passed out. And juniper being a relative of the pine tree family, you get a real sort of pine freshness coming through the gin, which is definitely an element of it that I picked up. The next two ingredients that we're going to pass out are coriander seed and angelica root. So coriander seed, I'm not going to talk too much about. That goes in every single type of gin that you'll ever try. The other one, the angelica root. Now we use quite a robust strain of angelica root into ours. Angelica root, generally speaking, that's the element that makes gin taste dry. So if you've heard the expression dry gin or London dry gin, that's because of the addition of angelica root, essentially. It's also angelica root is used an awful lot in perfumes. So if you ever wonder why a perfume, why the scent stays with you for the full course of a day, that's down to the angelica root that goes in there. It's a fixative, essentially. So it kind of keeps, in the case of perfume, it keeps the scent there for a long time. In the case of the gin, it should keep the flavour of the gin there for quite a long time. So that's why that's probably my favourite ingredient. Of those who have tried it, does the angelica remind anyone of anything? Curry, absolutely. That's the answer I'm looking for. So essentially, that's a very good way to remember exactly how Makar Glasgow gin tastes and what it goes well with. That's why we do it with mild green chilli, yeah, exactly that. It'll go well with anything savoury, but it'll go very, very well with a curry. Coronation chicken so far is the best food pairing thing that I've found with Makar, yeah, definitely. All right. Next one. Here we are. Last one. Okay, so the next ingredients that are going out, we've got black pepper going out. I don't know if it's entirely necessary for me to pass black pepper around. Everyone's seen black pepper, they know. In fact, I should probably not pass it around. It's the most stolen of all my botanicals. Presumably the most handy for use at home. And then the other one that's going around there is cassia bark. Cassia bark is basically Chinese cinnamon. Have a smell of it. It's slightly softer, smoother, more round than regular cinnamon is. Okay, another couple. Okay, so a couple more botanicals that are coming around. On the left-hand side of the room, I have passed around some lemon peel. Again, it's not entirely necessary to pass around lemon peel. You've all seen it before. A lot of people ask where we get our botanicals from. Most of our botanicals, funnily enough, come from the Balkan regions. Our juniper comes from Bulgaria. By coincidence, so too do our coriander seed, our angelica root. They all come from Bulgaria. The only one that's really local is the next one I'm going to pass out is rosemary. So we have fresh rosemary that we get from Ayrshire. And the other one, which you could quantify as being local, is actually the lemon peels. We get our lemon peels from Sainsbury's at Braehead. So if anyone lives in the vicinity of Braehead and has wondered where their lemons have gone over the last 2 years, we've got them. So sorry about that. Okay. That's the last one to pass out, rosemary. So that's it. That's it's just the 8 botanicals that we've got there. A lot of gins will have kind of 40 or 50 different botanicals, and what you get with 40 or 50 different botanicals, you get a very nice sort of well-rounded gin. But what you get by just reducing it to just 7 or 8 botanicals, I think when you taste it neat like that, you can actually taste different botanicals at different points. I could close my eyes and I could probably pick out 4 or 5 of the different ingredients exactly. And for me, that makes it a great gin to drink just neat, just on its own. However, obviously, about 90% of all gin that's ever drunk is drunk with tonic. So, of course, we have to do that. We'll get onto that in a second. But before we do, Oh my goodness, it's huge. All right. So yeah, I'm not too familiar with PowerPoint presentations, so apologies for the size of my picture. It's not normally that big. However, this is our gin still. We are based out in Hillington. Is everyone familiar with Hillington? Okay, perhaps people have bought their kitchens from there, or tiles, or something of that nature. You live there? You live in Hillington? You're what is it?
I work in Hillington.
You work in Hillington. Okay, where do you work?
Well, I went to Hillington Primary.
You went to Hillington Primary, so people live in Hillington. Goodness me, I had not thought. All right, I'm going to have to be careful what I say. Usually the next 5 minutes of my chat is about how rubbish Hillington is. But all right, so yeah, okay, beautiful Hillington. Yes, so that's the first question that most people ask is, where is it made? You say Hillington. The second question they ask is, on the industrial estate. And we don't try and use the term industrial estate too much in our marketing literature, but we are in an old warehouse in Hillington, which may or may not be on an industrial estate. So that's where we make it. This is said warehouse, and within that warehouse, this is our gin still, Annie. So all gin stills are named after women. It's similar to ships. I'm not entirely sure why they do that. So our woman is Annie. That's our director's great-grandmother was called Annie, so that's why it's got that name. Annie was said to enjoy more than her fair share of gin and tonic as a favourite tipple of an evening. So when coming up with a woman to name your gin still after, why not an alcoholic family member, I suppose? And that's exactly what we've done. Okay. So it's a 450 litre still. It's made from copper, as you can see. It's a beautiful object, actually. And it's made by a company called Carl in Germany, which I'm told are like the McLaren of gin stills, essentially. They make fantastic pieces of machinery. It's a very clever piece of kit. It actually does two things at once, two different types of distillation. So first of all, you see the main kind of door of the still. So that's the pot of the still. In there, we throw our alcohol, our neutral grain spirit, our water, and 5 of our botanicals go in there as well. The 5 botanicals that go in there are the more robust ones. So black pepper, juniper, angelica root, cassia bark, and licorice. Those 5 go in there. And as we turn it on, it heats up, and essentially the liquid kind of turns into a stew. It's like a giant kettle, essentially. So all those 5 more robust botanicals, those are kind of macerating in there to extract all of the flavour from those. Meanwhile, up in the head of the still, which I've managed to crop out of the picture, unfortunately, but you can see just up at the top there's a little window up there. That's the head of the still, and in there we have a basket, or rather, we are supposed to have a basket. I told you about this being the McLaren of gin stills. I think a gin still like that costs about £200,000 or something in the vicinity, and they are supposed to include a basket to go in the top, into the helmet of the still. They did not include our basket, unfortunately, so in the head of the still we have a pillowcase instead. Specifically, we have a John Lewis pillowcase. Exactly, only the best. But John Lewis apparently do not use starch in their pillowcases, so that makes them distillation safe, apparently. So in the John Lewis pillowcase, we have our more delicate botanicals, so our rosemary, our lemon peel, and finally our coriander. Coriander is quite volatile. So those 3 go in there. As the liquid heats up, of course, it turns into vapor, and it's only the vapor that passes through the pillowcase, and that vapor just very delicately extracts the flavors that we want from our softer botanicals. After that, it then passes on through. We've got another column over here. It passes through this column. There's 6 plates in that column, so quite difficult for the vapor to make it through those 6 plates. If any vapor is kind of too thick, if it's too dense, it won't make it through. It comes back down a pipe, and then it starts its journey again. So essentially, we redistill the gin another 6 times. So it's distilled 7 times in total, and that's kind of what makes it quite smooth, hopefully, and quite easy to drink on its own. After that, the vapor that does make it through, it eventually gets to the final column. That's the condenser. Condenser turns it back into liquid, and that liquid is gin. So the whole process from start to finish takes us about 8 hours. And at the end of 8 hours, we get about 300 bottles of gin from each run that we do. And that's the process. As simple as that. Take a liquid, turn it into vapor, turn it back into a liquid, and that's gin. That's about as scientific as I get, I'm afraid. Okay, so yeah, so that's how we do that. Let's move on to, we've got another still alongside Annie. Yes, there it is again, another gigantic picture. But yeah, this still, you'll notice, called Tara. This is our whiskey still, or one of 2 whiskey stills that we have. Once again, all stills named after ladies. The lady in question this time, Tara, she is the 13-year-old daughter of our director. So very nice to have a big copper whiskey still named after you. Also, the first barrel that we ever produced off our whiskey has Tara's name on it too, which means in 5 years' time, when she's of legal drinking age, the whiskey too should be ready to be drunk. She won't want to drink it, of course. She'll be drinking Blue Wicked like all of her friends. But it's nice to have the option. So that's the whiskey we make. That's the first single malt to be made in Glasgow for 112 years, I believe, and won't be ready for another 18 months, essentially. Okay. After that, we'll go to gin and tonics very, very briefly. Goodness me, briefly. Yes, so gin and tonics. So you'll notice, some of you would have spoken to me before about our gin and tonic. The gin and tonic we do is, it's 1 part gin, 2 parts tonic, and it's served with a slice of mild green chili, so that's jalapeno that we serve. In the early days of the company, the head distiller and myself, we had a day at the distillery where we tried 100 different gin and tonics, slightly more than 100 it was. So this is a small selection of them. But yeah, I would highly recommend such days, actually. You'd be amazed at the findings from what I can remember. But yes, indeed. So our own personal choice was mild green chili. What we did find was that anything savoury goes very, very well with Makar. It is ultimately quite a savoury style of gin. Other gins are quite floral, quite delicate, quite perfumed. Ours much more savoury, much more robust in style. So a savoury garnish will go very well. The mild green chili we think works very well. The other one that worked very well somewhere is, let me see, up here we had, that is fennel. So just a slice of fennel bulb. Works very well, brings out the sort of licorice and sort of anise flavours that are in the gin. But yeah, anything else, so things like strawberry, things like mango, they definitely don't work with our gin. And that was a bit of an eye-opener for us. That was kind of interesting. So yeah, mild green chili, gin and tonic, hopefully that works. Let me see. Okay, I am under strict instructions that I've got to finish at 1:15. So we were going to do the history of gin. We were also going to make a cocktail. I can do one or the other. Shall we make a cocktail? All right, okay, let's make a cocktail. All right. So my background is in working in cocktail bars. That's kind of how I got the job. Essentially, it's my job to go around and talk to bartenders and tell them that our gin's much nicer than everyone else's gin, and it helps apparently if you've got cocktail experience. So this is the gin we did. We worked recently in collaboration with another company called Lochfine Oysters, who I'm sure quite a lot of you will be familiar with. Lochfine export their products, their salmons, their oysters, all around the world. So quite good to kind of collaborate with them. One of their products, one of their smoked salmon products, they were curing their salmon in a type of gin, a low-quality type of gin, and they've since decided to up their game, and they've got Makar involved. So they're going to do a Makar-cured Lochfine smoked salmon, which as a product just trips off the tongue. It's great. Okay. So in order to kind of complement the Lochfine cured salmon, Lochfine Makar smoked cured salmon. Anyway, in order to complement that, we had to come up with a cocktail that would go very, very well with cured salmon. So this is a cocktail that we're calling a fine and dandy cocktail. Lochfine, of course, I'm going to use dandelion in the cocktail too. So the first thing that we're going to put in there, Makar Glasgow gin. So we're going to go for about a double measure of Makar Glasgow gin. Should be approximately that. Okay, after that, so we're making cocktails. Does anyone make cocktails in the house? Yes. You do? All right, good. As a general rule of thumb, when making cocktails, it's good to stick to a rule. We know it's the 3 S's. In order to balance your cocktail. So the 3 S's, the first S we've already got in there, that's the strength of our cocktail. Second S, this is fresh lemon juice, so that's going to be the sour ingredient for our cocktail.
Sweet.
And the third S is sweet. Oh, brilliant. You definitely get a bonus point. I don't know what we're counting up towards, but you're almost winning. Okay, so this is the sweet ingredient. This is sugar syrup. This is essentially 2 parts sugar, 1 part water. You boil that up. And now adding dill to it as well. Dill obviously goes quite well with salmon, so we're going to do equal measurements of our lemon juice to our salmon. Sorry if my voice is going, it's been quite a long day talking about gin. Okay, so that's it. So we've got our strength, our sweetness, and our sourness. The general rule of thumb, making cocktails in the home, just stick to that. If you've got that, once you've got that in your cocktail, that's going to find you the balance, and then all you really have to do is flavour it with fruit or fruit juices or whatever. So the fruit and the fruit juice that we're going to use cucumber water here. If I was doing it smaller scale, I would probably just throw a few cubes of cucumber into the shaker and kind of mush them up. But in this instance, I blitzed cucumbers with a little bit of water, got cucumber water from it. So that's going to go in there, and then as a byproduct of the gin making process, I told you every time we distill the gin, we get about 300 bottles of gin, which is very, very low yield for a still of that size. And unfortunately, it's a bit like whiskey. You get heads and you get tails. You get certain parts of the process that you can't use. They don't taste as good as the hearts of the gin. So we're left with this sort of byproduct of alcohol that's not particularly nice to drink. So we've been experimenting with what we can possibly do with that. And at the moment, what we're looking to do is redistill it, which is what we've done here, and to try and make our own bitters, so something similar to Angostura bitters. In this instance, we're doing dandelion and burdock bitters. We do a couple of drops of that. And then finally, if there's any left, there's just a little bit of salt and pepper in there as well, just to go with the sort of savoury notes that are already in the cocktail. Okay, so as much ice as you possibly can. And then this is sort of a professional cocktail shaker. It's a Boston shaker, a two-piece shaker. It uses glass. I'm told this glass is the same type of glass which NASA use in the windscreens of their space shuttle. On a busy shift in a busy cocktail bar, you'll usually break about 3 or 4. So that might explain why NASA pulled their space shuttle, which I'm not too sure. Yeah. All right, so we're going to just give it a tap to form a seal. It should seal like so perfectly well. Exactly, that doesn't always work like that. All right. Next, we're going to shake our cocktail. Let's see. Yes, going to shake our cocktail. Various different styles of shaking a cocktail. I used to work with a chap who would kind of insist upon shaking a cocktail down here between his legs. Looked very much to me like he was digging a road. To certain customers, like something more untoward was going on. Not too sure. If you go to certain cocktail bars not too far from here, you'll get my least favourite type of cocktail bartender. And he is the one I call the extrovert bartender. So the extrovert bartender has probably watched too many Tom Cruise films in his life. He's the bartender who shakes right up here with a big grin at you, incessantly bossing out. You know. I'm thinking of a very specific bartender, I have to say, but there is such a guy, and he works pretty close to here. So yeah, I hate that guy. So anyway, given my no, not at all. I'm not. Don't go to Blue Dog. That's all. All right. So anyway, due to my dislike of this particular style of bartending, I've developed my own style for shaking a cocktail. It might be one that you choose to adopt or not. And it's called the shy bartender style of shaking a cocktail. So the shy bartender will kind of shake the cocktail shaker over here in front of his face. I'll look at the walls, I'll look at the ground, I'll look at everything, but whatever I do, I'm not going to look at my customer. Here we are, it's true. And there's very good reason for the shy bartender being the shy bartender, and that's something known in the industry as your shaker face. Is anyone familiar with the expression shaker face? All right, well, certain customers will have you believe that the expression you pull when you shake a cocktail is the same expression that... Let me finish. All right. It's the same expression that you pull at a time of great excitement, okay? So, for example, just before you open your Christmas present or something like that. All right? I don't know what you guys are thinking. All right. So, bearing that in mind, I'm going to do my shy bartender. I'm going to shake cocktail. For about 15 seconds. No one saw it, did they? Okay, I hope. All right, just long enough to get condensation down the side of the tin. That's how you know that it's reached the desired temperature within the glass. After that, I'm just going to open the cocktail shaker, just give it a hit on the side, like so, and it should come off every time. Okay. Next, we've got our cocktail glass here. Always chilling, okay, so you never serve a martini with ice in the glass, so you must make sure the glass is cold enough beforehand. After that, just going to double strain the cocktail, get rid of any salt and pepper and so on and so forth, into our glass. Like so, like I say, so it's all dill, cucumber, salt and pepper, dandelion, so all things that will go hopefully very, very well with salmon. So what better thing to garnish it with than the very salmon itself, the Loch Fyne, Makar, Glasgow cured, smoked salmon. Yeah, when I was preparing these, I realised I might be the first person ever to put roll mops on the side of a cocktail. But that's exactly what I've done. So there we are. We're going to have those cocktails coming right out to you in just a second. Yes, indeed. Just one thing, we do have quite a fast turnaround on this room. I believe it's about 15 minutes after we finish, they're going to start an illegal rave or whatever it is that they do here. so if I could implore you, once you get your cocktail, if you guys want to come through to the main room with me, and we can enjoy them through there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.